This is Net News Network Headline News for all your national and world news you won't hear on MSM. Over the weekend, the Democrats passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which will do anything but reduce inflation. And if this continues to go through and is signed into law, estimates are that spending will be at $3.5 trillion since Joe Biden took office. Just what the country needs in the time of a recession. The passage of the Inflation Reduction Act over the weekend brings the total amount of spending in the pipeline by congressional Democrats to around $3.5 trillion since President Joe Biden took office, with the imposing tally coming as Americans struggle with an inflationary cost of living crisis. Senators passed a sweeping bill estimated at $740 billion in a 51-50 vote on August 7th, with Vice President Kamala Harris casting the tie-breaking vote. The package, which Republicans have panned as a tax and spend bonanza, and the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, CBO, said would have a negligible impact on inflation, next goes to the House for consideration. Assuming the bill clears all remaining legislative hurdles and gets signed into law by the president, this would bring the total amount of big-ticket spending by congressional Democrats under Biden's watch to nearly $3.5 trillion. The head-turning tally is arrived at by adding up the price tags of the American Recovery Act, $1.9 trillion, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, $550 billion, the CHIPS and Science Act, $280 billion, and the Inflation Reduction Act, $740 billion. While CBO told Senate Majority Leader Senator Chuck Schumer in an August 6th letter that it had not finalized all its estimates for every title in the bill, the ones that it did analyze showed that the legislation would increase budgetary deficits during the 2022 to 31 period by a total of around $115 billion. In what business or in what home could you have a budget running those kind of deficits and continue to operate? Why is the government any different? The end result will be that it's not. In remarks following the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, Schumer called the legislative process a long, tough, and winding road. But at last we have arrived. The Senate is making history. I am confident the Inflation Reduction Act will endure as one of the defining legislative measures of the 21st century, the Democrat lawmaker added. Well, he's probably correct about that. It's going to help destroy this economy even further. Republicans have panned the measure, arguing that its business tax hikes would hurt job creation and, contrary to the bill's name and stated intention, would actually add to inflationary pressures. Democrats have already robbed American families once through inflation, and now their solution is to rob American families a second time. Senator Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said on the Senate floor, arguing that the bill would eliminate jobs. The Tax Foundation, a think tank, said in an analysis of the economic impacts of the Democrats' newest spending bill that while it avoids some of the bigger tax hikes contained in the Build Back Better Act, the new measure would raise taxes on work and investment, and so create disincentives for productive activity. The think tank also echoed the CBO's view on the new bill's impact on inflation, saying that, on balance, the long-run impact on inflation is particularly uncertain but likely close to zero. Overall, economists are divided over the Inflation Reduction Act, with some arguing that it will lead to lower consumer prices while spurring economic growth, and others predicting that the measure will worsen inflation and contribute to economic stagnation. Part of this Inflation Reduction Act is to give the IRS a bunch of money and add 87,000 IRS agents. What do you suppose the purpose of those adding that many agents would be? The White House economic advisor claims that people making under $400,000 a year will not pay more taxes under this bill. Well, White House economic advisor Jared Bernstein appeared on CNBC's Squawk Box Monday and was interviewed by host Brian Sullivan, who questioned him about the impact the Inflation Reduction Act will have on taxpayers. If passed by the House of Representatives and signed into law by President Joe Biden, the legislation would add 87,000 IRS agents. Additionally, it would raise taxes on most Americans, despite promises not to increase taxes on those making less than $400,000 a year. So they lied? What a shock. What a surprise. I want to be clear. Is the president guaranteeing nobody making under $400,000 will be audited by the new agents? Asked Sullivan. No. That's not what I said. Nobody making under $400,000 will pay higher taxes under the Inflation Reduction Act, Bernstein said. If they are doubling the size of the IRS, then who are they going to go after? Asked Sullivan, while also mentioning small businesses. Bernstein did not answer the question regarding who the extra IRS agents would audit, and instead restated his pledge that people making under $400,000 per year will not pay more in taxes. However, Fox News reported that according to the Nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxation, JCT, Bernstein's pledge is not true. According to the JCT, Americans making less than $10,000 per year would see a 0.3% tax hike starting in 2023. Overall, starting in 2023, taxes would increase by $16.7 billion for Americans earning less than $200,000. Bernstein argued that the legislation's stimulus of so-called green energy sources will spur economic growth and hence reduce the debt-to-GDP ratio. By investing in standing up a clean energy industry, manufacturing as the act does, that's going to generate more economic growth, spin off more revenues, Bernstein said. Many Americans are hurting economically, as data published by the Department of Labor in July revealed inflation is at a record 40-year high. And yet the government is going to go ahead and pass legislation in a recession when inflation is sky high, gas prices, food prices, energy prices, sky high. They're going to raise taxes on us, and on top of that, they're going to audit us to try to get every other last penny out of us they can get. And in the meantime, they're going to push all this green energy and green agenda on every business entity, every industry that's left in the United States. This is not the time to push that stuff. People need to be able to keep more of their hard-earned money right now to pay for necessities. And if it's not bad enough that these necessities are going by the wayside or hard to find because of all the other issues we're having, they're going out of their way to take these things away that we need, like energy, heat, fuel for our cars. If you want this green energy, then build it up while we continue to use fossil fuels. And once your green energy can supposedly take the place of the fossil fuels, then we can shut it off. But until then, you don't take away what we need to survive for a hypothetical possibility that isn't even in place yet. All this coming down from the Democrats, the party who cares so much for the poor and the mistreated and social justice and equity and all these buzzwords they like to use, and yet these policies will hurt those people the most. The poor, the other races of people, this is going to affect them more drastically than anybody else. They're already struggling, and now you're going to make them struggle more. When are voters going to realize this is the party of liars, the party of corruption, the party of power and control and taking everything you have? People, you got to open your eyes and see what's going on for what it is. It's so plainly obvious. This has been Net News Network Headline News. For more, visit netnewsnetwork.net. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.